Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back into the video from Mother's Basement. Today, we're checking out the problem with Isekai. It's amazing, isn't it? There's always a discussion point with Isekai. There's always Isekai. Isekai's always around. People complain about Isekai. People love Isekai. I always find an Isekai to watch every season when I think to myself, John, I don't want to. There's always different premise. It's always evolving into different things. But yeah, let's see what the problem is. Is everything too same? Is everything too similar? Do all the main characters look alike?
Isekai has a bit of a bum rap. I know quite a few anime enthusiasts who won't even look at a show if there's so much as a whiff of truck-kun or cheat powers, and honestly, I can't say I blame them.
It's very oversaturated is the word, isn't it? Yeah.
Speaking as someone who's watched most isekai are terrible. Notably worse at a notably higher frequency than basically any other genre of anime. And that's speaking as someone who's also watched most harems. A sizable portion of the isekai audience will slurp up any old slop so long as it stars a nerd from Earth like them with a non-zero chance of pulling some elf eventually in like 30 seasons or so. And I really do mean any old slop. The lowest rated isekai in any given season will almost always pull higher viewership numbers than the best original anime of any given year.
Really? That's so interesting. What the fuck?
As you might recall from my worst of 2024 list, Failure Frame is an isekai in which literally every fight scene is just
Oh, yeah.
Poison. 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 Poison.
over and
Wow.
over and paralyze and poison until you just want to make out with a P320. And
Wow.
it has a 4.4 out of 5 on Crunchyroll with 85,000 ratings. For context, Apocalypse
That's
Hotel,
mental.
the best anime
Oh,
of 2025
okay, yeah.
so far, has barely 4,000. That's 1,000 less than Ugly Mug Epic Fighter, an isekai that looks like this and is called Ugly Mug Epic Fighter. Some of y'all really
So
will
confusing.
watch fucking anything, and the anime industry is more than happy to give it to you, but that's not the problem with isekai. At least not the one that any of us can do anything about, so not worth making a video about. I can't stop everyone else from watching bad anime, but I can at least help you watch some better ones. Because there is one crucial factor that every good isekai gets right, and almost every bad one gets wrong.
Okay.
Something that anyone writing an isekai should keep in mind if they want any chance of it being halfway decent, and anyone watching isekai should keep an eye out for much the same reason. It's so important you can use it to clock if an isekai is worth watching in just one episode. And I'm gonna tell you exactly what that problem with modern isekai is. Now, there are quite a lot of isekai with quite a lot of things wrong with them, from flat, boring power curves to altogether too many villains who turn out to be
Oh, God.
to several
Was that from the?
what one might
Wait, was that from the one of the Dragon Ball movies? That's weird.
all tacit endorsements of slavery. But none of these problems are the problem. The power curve thing is a pretty big problem, to the point I made a whole other video about it, but plenty of isekai don't completely dunk that up and still manage to suck butts. And a few that basically disregard it entirely still turned out pretty awesome. Figuring out if a power system is interesting and satisfying to progress through can also take several episodes. Sometimes so many you don't even realize there is a power system until like season 2. And I did promise you a litmus test that could judge isekai in one episode.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this. What is this?
Or less. The root of the problem lies at the very core of the isekai concept. A story about a person from a world, usually this one, being transported to a cool new world. Basically every isekai author has that second part covered, or at least tries to. I'm sure their moms think their worlds are cool. It's the first part that really trips them up, if they even think about it at all. Because isekai aren't just stories about cool worlds. We already have a word for those. Fantasy.
Yeah.
Isekai are stories about people from worlds. Usually this one. Far too many fantasy light novel writers see that as little more than a cheat code for creating relatability. The isekai concept does easily facilitate the creation of fantasy heroes who are just like me for real, without actually having to explain how that kind of guy could come to exist in 14th century Europe or whatever. You want to pad out some generic Tolkien-esque fluff with an endless stream of game and anime references where the protagonist's personality ought to be? Just pluck some nerd off the Tokyo pavement, pop him down in the starting town with one or more waifus, and watch him go. On that note, making your story an isekai also has a lot of structural advantages, not the least of which being you don't have to figure out how to get your protagonist to where the story starts. Just truck, bam, now he's there. He probably doesn't know all about the world he just dropped into either, giving him the perfect excuse to ask anyone he meets for an exposition dump. And that's on top of all the free dumping you get to do in the scene where he meets his isekai travel agent.
Just wondering,
Oh, mate, the Konosuba ones with Aqua's brilliant. It's so good, so good.
won't I have to learn this world's language?
Details, schmetails, just hurry it up already. I've got loads more dead humans to guide besides you, you know.
The portal fantasy trope is an undeniably versatile tool for kickstarting a quick and dirty escapist fantasy quest, but it's so much more than that, fully half the premise of this genre. What makes isekai interesting, what sets it apart from regular fantasy, is the inherent conflict, the clash of perspectives, ideals, worldviews that comes with suddenly immersing a person in a totally foreign place, time, and jurisdiction of the laws of physics. How does that change someone? How would the world change in response to them?
Mate,
How
yeah,
does-
because Eminence of the Shadow gets it right, man. Eminence of the Shadow nails it.
the new world compared to the old one? These are deep wells of thematic potential, opportunities for profound commentary on the world we live in and the people who live in it that most isekai writers completely ignore. Well, okay, not completely. The new world is better because it's more like a video game, unless it's a hard video game with lots of blood and guts, in which case it's better with an asterisk. That world changes the protagonist from an incel into a guy who's had his dick sucked by an elf, and he changes it in turn by setting a new bar for how many elves can suck one guy's dick. Sorry, spoilers for, it's probably easier to just list the isekai that doesn't spoil, and that's precisely what makes all the ones it does so fundamentally worthless, at least after you've watched your first 1 or 20. Don't get me twisted, there is obvious value in raw escapist fantasy. A lot of stuff worth escaping on this bitch of a late capitalist
yeah.
Earth, but it's the exact same flavor of value over and over and paralyze and poison until all you can taste is slop. And maybe that's all you need. Maybe you just want to feel numb for 20 minutes a week. That is very valid. But aside from that, past a certain point of diminishing returns, you gotta be a real weirdo who delights in watching other weirdos loudly tell on themselves through fiction to get anything out of watching more slop isekai. And most people are not me, which is why I've devised an elegant litmus test to identify and avoid the slop. After watching 1 or 2 episodes of a new isekai, all you gotta do is ask yourself, what was the hero's original world like, and how did they fit into it?
Right.
If the show gave you answers, or at least enough clues to speculate, you're probably watching something with something to say. At
I love it, yeah.
Something more than, what if you lived in a video game? That doesn't guarantee that what it has to say will be good or interesting. Failure Frame uses a whole mess of backstory just to say, what if you lived in a shitty gacha game and also were a school shooter? But at the very least, you know that the hero being from another world is going to matter to the story at least a little bit on some level. Yes, that's how low the bar is. But the sky is the limit for the shows that do clear.
Yes, yes it
I
is.
really believe
ReZero, what a show.
that the people I care about also care for me.
Subaru. Subaru.
I probably shouldn't turn 2 of these things in a row into Stealth ReZero glazing sessions, especially not in the same calendar year.
Just
but
do it.
ReZero is one of the best examples out there of a character fundamentally changed by his journey to another world. When he arrives in Lagunica, Natsuki Subaru is a hot mess. And while we are only given the briefest glimpse of his life on Earth before he's torn away from it, it tells us quite a lot about him. He's the kind of guy who reads Jump in the Konbini without actually buying it. The kind of guy who knows he should be eating miso natto cup noodles,
But it's-
gets tonkatsu instead, plus some chips.
Okay.
It. But also, he is the kind of guy with the presence of mind to catch a rare coin in his change and hold on to it. His eyes, especially, tell us so much about him. First, with the way they follow that couple walking by in their school uniforms, then dart back to his sad, single, tracksuit-encrusted hikikomori ass, expressing a lifetime of self-hatred with one glance and a sigh. Then there's the way those eyes light up when he realizes he's been isekai.
Alright.
He wants this. He needs it. There is clearly something he hates about life back on Earth, and we don't know what that is yet. Subaru desperately does not want to think about it, so it will be many episodes.
There is intrigue already with the main character. Makes it interesting. Yeah. Every other main character in Isekai is very generic. And he's right, it does play on mainly like the world that they're in and the power system and stuff. And he's right again. Make the character interesting. Give us some sort of like, we learn about them in the real life. Eminence in the Shadow is meant to be a comedy, but like, and it is, but it just nails it.
Before we finally get around to unpacking
Mishoku
why
Tensei.
exactly he is like this. But it's enough to know that the writer has an answer to that question. Chotomate a sec there, though. Didn't I just get done complaining that the only way most writers use isekai is to insert an earth nerd into striking range of some elf pussy? Is ReZero not a prototypical example of that? Sure, a lot of Subaru's early characterization is the same sort of self-aware, genre-savvy, reference-spouting anti-swagger we've seen from a billion other Kiritos before. But the key difference is that Subaru is savvy to the wrong genre, stuck in a much darker horror fantasy type thing where his nerd quips are painfully out of place, and so, frequently, are his organs and limbs. Far more important than just doing something different with its otaku protag, though, ReZero actually bothers to define who he is with more than that one word, and to explore what life was like for him back on Earth when he wasn't watching anime and playing video games. There's depth there, space for an actual character arc. Slop isekai heroes have character development. Your average Kirito will probably get a little more confident as his stats go up and maybe, like, learn to be slightly more responsible and less lazy or whatever, but they never have character arcs because it's impossible to draw an arc if all you know is where it ends. You need a fixed starting point with a clearly defined trajectory, and by treating the Portal fantasy as nothing but a cheat code to spawn a backstory-free audience insert for their regular, boring gamelit thing that frankly didn't need to be an isekai in the first place, all of these anime and manga and light novels sacrifice their ability to create that point. Now, of course, there are other areas where these isekai can still excel. They can have a solid plot, an interesting and immersive setting, or some quality waifus. But, I mean, they immediately set themselves way back in the waifu department by making the main guy those waifus are going to interact with a pair of pants, which also affects the non-waifu characters if the anime decides to have those. And it kind of doesn't matter how fraught your world's political situation gets, how crazy the magic system is, or how deep the lore is, if the people living in it don't feel real.
Yeah.
So that's a massive uphill battle, even for a really good writer. And let's be honest, there's not a lot of those working in this space. It's not impossible, though. This season's The Water Magician has a very strong supporting cast who even get to save the day all by themselves while Protag's busy risen up the elf pussy in the library. The Adventurers Guild that they're part of has a fleshed out bureaucracy behind it, and its operations are subject to the whims of other political forces within the kingdom, not to mention economic forces. There's a whole plot point where fetch quests start drying up because the market's glutted with monster parts. There are other kingdoms, too, that we have to worry about, plus a presumably evil empire with a really dumb name.
Whoa, she looked
他の
cool.
2つはデブヒ帝国とハンダルー諸国連合だ。
デブヒ？
帝国に何か嫌な思い出でもあるのか？
いえ、名前がかっこ悪い。
The world generally feels alive and like it keeps existing when Protag-kun isn't looking directly at it, which
Cool.
is a very good thing because Ryo is easily the weakest link in his own story. He's not awful, to be clear. He's got some fun quirks, like being irritated by dumb-sounding fantasy names, and even some well-defined personality traits that synergize with the rest of the cast. The show takes its time giving him chances to flex and get elf pussy, too, which
Nice.
makes it all the more satisfying when he finally does. And while he is yet another crazy, overpowered, silent casting battle mage, at least there's a specific unifying theme to his silent casted magic that allows for some creative choreography and gives the show's action a unique identity. As pants go, Ryo is very well tailored with some fancy embellishments, but at the end of the day, he's still pants. We have no idea where he came from or why he is who he is. What did he go through on Earth to make him want to live alone in the middle of nowhere for years? Does he miss anyone back home? Do they miss him? Besides magic and sword fighting, what is he good at? What were his interests and hobbies? His personal goals? No matter how much time we spend with him, we never really learn anything more about him and what motivates him, which leaves this gaping hole in the story that only grows with each passing episode. And that hole doesn't need to be there because, like many modern isekai, the water magician doesn't need to be an isekai. The only thing that Ryo being from Earth really does for the story that couldn't be accomplished by just making him a weird guy who grew up in the middle of nowhere is explain how he knows what water molecules are, which does make his magic more powerful, so that's kind of important. But also you could like come up with an ancient civilization or a million other ways to explain that to him. And if he were native to this world, then the necessary explanations for how he ended up living in no man's land, how he discovered and learned his distinct form of magic, and so on, would all create opportunities to expand and ground his character. Secrets of the Silent Witch, also from this season, is a prime example of how much a fantasy story about an overpowered silent
This one
casting
sounds
mage
good.
stands to gain by just having the courage to not be an isekai. And it makes a great point of contrast.
Yeah, because why does it need to? It's got an interesting premise anyway. It's like, I love it. Isn't this the one where she created silent spells because she doesn't like talking to people? That's great. Imagine if they made that an isekai. Like, why? It wouldn't be any point. So yeah, I like that. It got the balls to just go, it's a fantasy. Like, people get mixed up with Dan Machi being an isekai as well, because it's just not. It's a fantasy. It just came out around about the same time as like Sword Art Online and that. And that's a really, really good anime.
Because, like the Water Magician, it has an interesting, politically complex, lore-rich world and a huge cast of thoroughly entertaining characters. So we can see just how much making the protagonist an actual character adds to that. Monica Everett's OP incantation-free magic isn't just an isekai cheat power, it's rooted in her love of math, which is all that she has left from her dead father, and the crippling anxiety that makes her incapable of saying spells out loud, which is itself the result of being taken in by an abusive uncle at a young age. She also has an entire academic career.
She's got a really good backstory. I say good, but you know what I mean.
Respect her, co-workers at her current government.
Believable and emotional backstory that we can get behind. I mean, good. That's not good. Yeah. Portu's words.
Job who give her a hard time. A full life lived prior to the start of the story, which we slowly uncover through flashbacks and other emotional beats that would just be boring downtime in something like The Water Magician. But the effect isn't just additive, it's multiplicative, because that extra side of the story interacts with all the other sides. Monica's past adds context and weight to her present development, allowing moments like making her first friend, discovering a passion outside of magic, and speaking up for herself for the first time to hit harder because we understand how hard those things are for her. It also lets her relate to the other characters and what they're going through on more than a surface level, and vice versa. It just makes everything about the entire show better, and it does it without sacrificing the wish fulfillment of going to a fancy fantasy high school that isn't a magic school but does have magic electives, having a bunch of hot rich guys fall for her, and kicking ass with crazy OP spells.
I love class.
It's an escapist fantasy through and through, but not not a mindless one. It's introspective, insightful, rich in character, a story with valuable things to say about anxiety, what it's like to live with it, and how we can overcome it. It doesn't just whisk you away from your miserable reality for 20 minutes a week. It gives you something to think on when you get back, ways to understand and address the problems that make its heroine so relatable in the first place. That sort of mindful escapism also characterizes my favorite non-anime isekai, which Quest for the Best listeners will be very familiar with, Dungeon Crawler Carl, a series of English language heavy
He's mentioned
novels
this a
that
few
I can
times,
best
yes.
describe as Sword Art Online meets The Running Man meets Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which the survivors of an alien fish Nazi invasion must clear 18 increasingly deadly levels of World Dungeon on the universe's hottest reality TV show to win our planet back.
Whoa.
With meth head goblins, cockfighting kobolds, pyramid scheming hive minds, and some really, really fucking scary clowns standing in the way, plus a psychotic AI with a foot fetish acting as dungeon master, that will be a whole lot easier said than done, even with the power of magic that the dungeon somehow makes real. But lucky for Carl, he has the survival skills he learned in the Coast Guard, a beautifully
Nice.
supple pair of feet, and his ex-girlfriend's prize-winning Persian show cat, Princess Donut, who, due to various circumstances, can talk now and shoot magic missiles from her eyes. Plus, she's
Very
much more media
cool.
savvy than Carl, which really helps in a dungeon where stream stats matter just as much as character stats. If all this sounds silly, that's only because it absolutely is. Dungeon Crawler Carl is easily the most fun I have ever had in a story with this many stat screens, but that never stops it from getting deadly serious when it needs to, or from treating everyone we meet in this zany hellhole, from fellow crawlers to alien talk show hosts to fish La Resistance members, as complex individuals with history, baggage, deeply personal motivations, and nuanced opinions on Gossip Girl. Despite the conceptual similarities to SAO, this is no massively single-player lit RPG, though, of course, Carl and Donut are the best characters of the bunch. Carl's past, in particular, is something the series really takes its time unpacking and exploring. He doesn't even fully confront it until 6 books in, but its weight can be felt through his every word and action, even especially when he doesn't want to talk about it. A conceit that allows Carl to present the more relatably nerdy, surface-level aspects of his personality up front and suck that escapist fiction audience in before they realize just how little he actually is like them for real. It also allows the book to jump right into the action and start having fun with it, then slowly layer on its more profound themes of found family, how trauma transforms us immediately and over time, how oppressive systems use trauma to beat
Well,
us
like a
into
xenomorph,
compliance
though.
and turn us against each other to keep us from fighting back, and what you, yes, you, can do about it if you're ever in the same room as the people responsible. Shit gets so much darker than you would ever expect from the intro, and page 2 of that intro involves an old lady being decapitated. Yet, at the heart of all that darkness burns a small, resilient flame of hope that shines all the brighter for it. And more than rich lore, strong characters, and wonderful humor, that is what really makes Dungeon Crawler Carl worth reading or listening to. The audiobook is actually peak. It's also, I think, the biggest thing that modern isekai is missing, and the real root of the problem. I don't know if you've noticed, but they don't really make isekai about people trying to get home anymore. The
No.
most recent ones I can think of are Ari Ferretta, Sunny Boy, and Dad's Been Reincarnated, which is like 3 of the last 200 or so.
Damn.
It used to be the entire genre.
Yeah, man. Oh my god. Yes. Literally, I'd say Escaflowne was one of the first I watched, which was about that, and here we are.
Scaflowne,
Hey.
Ray Earth, Abenobashi, Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, Digimon. No
Digimon.
matter how otaku-centric the anime was, no matter how fun the other worlds seemed,
They wanted to get back
going
home.
back was always at least a question. Sometimes the hero would be tempted to stay, and sometimes they'd give in to that temptation, or just find out there was no way back, but there were always people back home that they'd missed, goals they'd leave unfulfilled, things they'd be giving up, consequences for the choice. Nowadays, there's this persistent feeling across the entire genre that nothing on Earth is worth going back to. Of course, some of that shift comes down to an increased use of the reincarnation angle. Mine Bookworm already died, for instance, so it'd be weird if she went back to Earth to read some books and see her mom again, no matter how bad she wants that. And her story is still full of hope. It's about making the most of what you have instead of pining for what you've lost. But that's the exception that proves the rule. Most modern isekai, reincarnation types included, exist solely to comfort and console their audience over how much shit generally sucks, while offering no solution beyond, wouldn't it be neat to go somewhere that doesn't suck? Sure, the bullies at school are relentlessly cruel and your boss values you slightly less than his paper shredder, but hey, look on the bright side. You might get hit by a truck today. It's fucking bleak if you think about it for even a second, but of course, not thinking about it is the whole point. These shows are designed to make you comfortably numb, so that situation you can't really escape from is at least a little easier to accept. And clearly, there is a huge market for that. But in capitalizing on it, isekai creators sell themselves, their audience, and their art short. Isekai can be about deep personal journeys, worlds shaken to their core by tenacious heroes with bold new ideas, and universal human truths that transcend our present time and space. Instead, we're just drowning in so much elf pussy, it doesn't even feel like anything anymore. I'm Jeff Thu, professional escapism artist, and for my next trick, I'm gonna sit on stage reading a book for 20 hours.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. Nah, very, very valid points made there. Like, the most interesting ones are the ones where the character are interesting and the cast also add to it. Majority of it is just, here's the world, here's what exists, and that's why it's cool. But yeah, it's still funny that Isekai is still a talking point every year. And I think it's because when the ones get it right, they get it right so good that everyone talks about it, like The Eminence in the Shadow, Mushoku Tensei. ReZero coming back was a big one and they nailed it with that. You know, some hard hitters. Thanks for watching.